Welcome to Watson Clinic Health Talk. Is breakfast really the most important meal of the day? What should you look for in a food label? And what role does food play in managing chronic conditions like diabetes, kidney disease, or even epilepsy? Our guest on this episode will address these and many other questions. She's Massiel Gilpin, a registered dietitian and certified diabetes care and education specialist in Watson Clinic's Dietary Counseling and Medical Nutrition Therapy Department. The department operates out of two convenient locations, Watson Clinic Main in Lakeland and Watson Clinic Bartow Building A, and they accept appointments by physician referral only. For more information, visit watsonclinic.com/nutrition. Thank you so much for being here today, Massiel. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So as a registered dietitian, a couple of questions just about the position and what it entails. Generally, what are you helping patients with?
So the patients that I see at Watson Clinic, for the most part, are usually diabetic. I have a certification in diabetes education. So a lot of doctors and providers there are familiar with our diabetes education. Not a lot are familiar with the fact that we do everything else as well. So patients with kidney disease, patients with cancer, patients that need a tube feed, patients that need to lose weight or gain weight. So we get referrals for all of those kinds of patients.
Okay. So depending upon the condition, it might, along with that particular condition, it might have its own kind of dietary constraints.
Correct. Yes.
And you need to provide the guidance through that.
Correct. And then sometimes I have patients that have all the above, and they're like, what do I eat? Because I read that online, it says I should eat this, and then for my other conditions, I shouldn't eat that. So that's where we come into play of kind of helping them weed out a lot of those things they read online.
And a lot of times, the information you have to offer is surprising. I remember one of my relatives went through appointments with your department, and they were like, oh, I was shocked. I didn't know that this was something I could eat, or, so you guys are very helpful.
Yes. And we get a lot of feedback from patients that go to like our group diabetes education class, because it's a total of 8 hours just talking about diabetes and medications, how they're working. We talk about the nutrition aspect of things, how to eat with diabetes, exercise, all that stuff. And patients are like, wow, I wish I would have known this such a long time ago. They've had diabetes for 20 years and didn't know any of that stuff. So I think it's very informative for sure.
So I'm sure that primary care physicians often refer to you guys.
Yes, majority of them, and the endocrinologists. We even have the OBs specialists referring to us for gestational diabetes. We have nephrology referring for the kidney patients. So we have a lot of specialties also referring to us.
Is there an age limit that you start out? Okay.
No, we see pediatrics as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk in general terms about nutrition, because the month this is airing is March, and March is National Nutrition Month.
Yes.
So let's talk about that a little bit, and then we'll drill down more on diabetes specifically, because I know that's a big one. What are some misconceptions that you find about nutritional needs?
I think that the internet is a scary place, and you could find whatever you want to find on there. So you can find that sodium is bad for you, and you can find that sodium is good for you. You can find that carbs are good for you and that carbs are bad for you. So it just depends where you're looking, what you're looking for. And I think it also depends what your condition is and what it is that you're trying to achieve. Because there are patients, for example, that their potassium levels are high in their blood work, so they need to eat low potassium foods. But then we have patients with low potassium that need high potassium food. So it really just depends on person to person as far as like what they need.
So that blood work is important to know where someone is deficient.
Yes, in certain things. So like potassium, phosphorus. But then there are some lab works that don't really coincide with food. For example, like your sodium level. Your sodium level in your lab work doesn't tell you how much sodium you're eating. It gives you overall look at your hydration status. So
Okay.
if your sodium is low, that means that you're retaining fluid. If your sodium is high, that means that you're dehydrated. So it doesn't really mean that you're eating too much sodium.
Okay.
Yeah.
In terms of meals, it's been said often that breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
And most people skip it.
So would you consider it the most important meal?
Yes, because majority of my patients that skip breakfast tell me they have an issue at night with snacks.
Yeah.
So if you're not eating enough throughout the day, your body is going to require you to make up for it somewhere, and they're usually up at night in the pantry.
And in terms of caloric intake, I know it's dependent upon your frame, your gender.
A lot of things. So your age, your activity status, it also depends on your height and your weight. So, and then also depends on your goal. So if you're trying to gain weight, you're going to need more calories. If you're trying to lose weight, you need less. So it really depends on person to person.
What is the number one culprit, food or beverage-wise, in bad health or bad diet?
I would say sugar-sweetened beverages. That's usually the number one thing that a lot of people struggle with. They don't drink enough water. They don't like water. And a lot of the sugar-sweetened beverages actually contribute to a lot of the common diseases now, diabetes, heart disease, all that stuff. And usually people drinking sugar-sweetened beverages are not really eating a healthy diet to begin with. So that combination, of the extra fat, the extra sugars, the extra sodium, that all is just a recipe for disaster.
What are the other than water? Obviously, water is the best, but the healthiest and most hydrating. But what other beverages are acceptable?
So you could do like unsweet tea. Some people still need that sweetener. So we'll say like you can add a little bit of like artificial sweetener to it. If you want to stay as like natural as possible, stevia, truvia, those sorts of things, monk fruit sweetener. There's a whole scandal on Splenda and Equal and all of those. I could go into a rabbit hole about those. But, you could use those. You could do the Crystal Light and the squeezable, sugar-free flavorings if you really just don't like the taste of water, or even using fresh fruit, herbs. You could do orange peels, cucumber slices, stuff like that to give your water flavor.
Okay. I'll show you. I brought with me today for our conversation, I'm sipping on an unsweet iced tea.
Yay.
So I
No
figure
sugar.
I'm sitting with a registered dietitian. I'm not going to drink a soda. So food. If we could go through breakfast, lunch, and dinner, talk a little bit about what's not the healthiest to eat and some substitutes for those foods that people might consider that are healthier.
I feel like the biggest issue that I have with a lot of people is they don't have time. So I don't have time to make breakfast in the morning. I don't have time to, sit and meal prep and stuff like that. So I do have resources and kind of like preset meal plans that I have for patients in my office that tell me they don't have much time, or they don't know how to cook, or they just don't like to cook, or it's just one person and I don't want to make all this food because then what? Pretty easy things and things that don't require much cooking, but that are going to be balanced, basically having a carb, a protein, or fat, and a vegetable. So I tell my patients, like, get steam in the bag vegetables. They're $1. Throw it in the microwave. There's your vegetable serving. You got the brown rice, minute brown rice. Pop that in the microwave. Get a rotisserie chicken or a frozen chicken. There you go. That's a balanced meal. Didn't require much cooking. Didn't require much anything really. And you could even do like canned vegetables without the added sodium. Get like the no salt ones. So a lot of people, their issue is that they don't want to buy too much vegetables because then they go bad. You could do frozen. You could do canned options. Just try to find the low sodium versions of that. For breakfast, wheat toast, English muffin, put some peanut butter on it, grab a piece of fruit, you're good. It doesn't require you having to fry anything. It doesn't require much. I think that's the biggest issue with people, is that they don't have the time and they don't have the resources sometimes to make, all these fancy recipes like an air fryer or, a grill or stuff like that. Yeah. So there's always a way around it for sure.
I know too that serving size is important. When you buy like a cereal, you don't realize how much you're eating.
Yes. Yes, that's another big one for sure. I have patients that when I show them what a serving size or what 1 cup of cereal looks like, because I have a lot of little food models in my office, they're like, oh yeah, no, I do like 2 or 3 of those. And I'm like, are you looking at the food label? Because on there it says, how much the serving size should be. It's up to you whether you follow it or not. And all cereals are different too. Like some go from like 3/4 of a cup of a serving size, and some go up to a cup and a half. So it really just depends on the cereal.
Yeah. So let's talk about serving size and other information you would find on a food label. So to be kind of more conscientious grocery shoppers, what should we look out for on those labels?
So remember that the food industry is trying to make money. So they want to market everything as nice as possible on the front. So you'll see 0 net carbs. You'll see no sugar added, only 1 gram of sugar, natural flavors or whatever they want to use on the front. My thing is go to the back, look at the serving size, look at the total amount of calories, look at the total grams of carbohydrate, because not everything that's sugar-free is carbohydrate-free. Not everything that only has 1 gram of sugar is necessarily carbohydrate-free. Pasta only has 1 gram of sugar in it, but it has a lot of carbohydrates. I want to look at the saturated fats. I want to look at the sodium content. That's one thing that a lot of people are not considering, especially with like canned soups and frozen meals and stuff like that, very high in sodium. And honestly, a lot of people are really hyper fixated on protein. And majority of us are not protein deficient. I don't think that's the problem in America. I think we're not getting enough fiber. That's another thing I would look at is the fiber content and try to look for things that are higher in fiber. But this protein rage that's going on right now, I don't think that's the issue. Yeah. I think it's everything else. I think we're getting enough protein in.
The drawbacks of high sugar intake are obvious. What is it about sodium that can be dangerous?
So if you have high blood pressure, sodium is definitely going to be something that you should be taking into consideration. If you have kidney disease, that's also something you want to take into consideration. If you have like swelling, you want to take that into consideration too, because more sodium, the more fluid retention that you're going to have. People who eat too much sodium probably feel bloated all the time as well. Those are all things that you want to take into consideration. But sodium is not only found in the salt shaker. It's mainly found in the processed foods. So most people are so fixated on pink Himalayan salt versus, white salt or whatever, but that's not the issue. It's where we're getting the salt is the problem. It's the pepperoni, the salami, the processed meats, the sausages, the chips, the stuff like that. That's where the
Those are the ones that are high
yes.
in sodium. Okay.
Yes.
Is soup a big thing too?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's very hard to find like a good tasting soup that's low in sodium. So we always say use like herbs and spices to make it taste
season
better.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Add more garlic powder, add cilantro, add black pepper. But a lot of seasonings too have a lot of salt in them outside of the salt shaker. Bouillon cubes, a lot of the Spanish seasonings out there, lemon pepper, all of that has salt in it. So you have to look and see, how much sodium is in there.
There's so much against us out there.
Yes.
We need you. We need you on our side, helping to guide us.
Yes.
There's obviously preparing food at home in a convenient manner, which you've gone through. What about eating out at restaurants? I mean, that's a lot trickier.
Yeah, it is. That's where a majority of the salt is coming from too. Like if you sit there and look, especially like Cheesecake Factory, look at the sodium even in a slice of cheesecake. It's 940 milligrams in a slice of cheesecake. You would think my dessert shouldn't be salty, right? But that's a lot of sodium in there. What we always recommend when you're going out to eat, look ahead. You usually know what you want or what your go-to orders are. Look and see, whatever it is that you're focused on. If it's carbs, if it's calories, if it's fat, it's sodium. Look at all those things ahead of time and maybe look for options that are lower. If you're trying to cut back on calories, you usually do a Whopper at Burger King. Do a Whopper Junior instead, right? That's going to be half the carbs, half the everything. And if you're usually doing a burger, do a chicken sandwich. How can I add a fruit or vegetable to my meal? Mm-hmm. Can I add more lettuce to my burger? Can I sub out the fries for a fruit cup? Those kinds of things.
I know a lot of people are just subtracting bread So they have the burger
Yes.
wrapped in lettuce or
Yes.
something. Is that valid?
So basically what they're doing is taking off calories. So weight loss is calories in versus calories out. Your body's burning X amount of calories during the day. Let's say it's 2,000. If you're eating 1,500 calories, you're in a 500 calorie deficit, you're going to lose weight. Or if you eat 2,000 calories worth of food and then you did 500 calories of exercise, then you'll lose weight. But if you continue to just eat 2,000 calories every day, and that's what your body's naturally burning without any extra exercise or anything, you're going to maintain the same weight. Mm-hmm. And people think 2,000 calories is a lot. It's actually not when you start to eat out a lot. You know, when you take off the bun from a burger, you're taking off like 200 calories. So that's really what you're doing. So that's where people will start to see weight loss when they're like, oh, I went low carb. Well, yeah, now you don't eat mac and cheese, you know, which could easily be 300-400 calories a serving. You took off the bread of a lot of things. You're subtracting 100 to 200, 300 calories off of things. You know, so majority of the calories that we come from usually are pretty high carb foods.
Okay.
We're not overdoing vegetables and chicken.
Yeah.
We're usually overdoing the pasta and the breadsticks.
Right.
Yeah.
In terms of the psychological side of this, people talk about cheat days or cheat meals, or
Yes.
do you encourage a certain number of? Okay.
No. Shouldn't be cheating on your food.
Okay.
Food is nourishment. Food is what you need to survive. It's not a game. You know, you just want to make sure that you're eating enough of what you need, you know, and there's going to be times in life where it's your birthday, it's your friend's birthday, your spouse's celebration for something. That's fine. You can have a slice of cake, but don't have a slice of cake every day that week to celebrate. It's everything in moderation. I think that's where a lot of people struggle, is understanding that part. It's either all or nothing. Mm-hmm. You know, I ate a slice of cake. Oh man, I'm so bad. Yeah, but you haven't had a slice of cake in months. So you're not going to die from that. It's, you know, when we're doing it all the time, where we need to treat every day, you know, because we had a bad day. So now I have to have a slice of cake every day. That's the problem. But having a slice of cake is not going to kill you. It's the constant, now I had a slice of cake and then I had a bad day, so I'm going to go get a burger and now I'm going to get a bottle of wine. Right. You know, it's that constant all or nothing.
In terms of food and nutrition science, how much have the recommendations really changed over the years? Are they pretty tried and true, or are we constantly discovering new things?
We're always discovering new things. One day eggs are bad, the other day they're good. You know, one day a high-fat diet is good, the other day it's bad. It really depends on the individual as well. Like the keto diet, you know, that's a famous one. It actually has really good research on those that have epilepsy or have neurological issues. It has good outcomes with that. As far as other people, like people with diabetes, not so much. So it really just depends on the person and the situation and their conditions, really.
Mm. So in terms of diabetes, when a patient is referred to you in your department, what are you asking the patient about their lifestyle or what have you?
So first we kind of assess, how long have you had diabetes? Because some people have had diabetes since the 60s, since the 70s, you know, so their concept of things may be a lot different than someone who just found out about diabetes last week and Googled everything. So that's the first starting point, is kind of trying to figure out, how new are you to this? What medications are you on? Are you against medications? Are you checking your blood sugar? That's really the starting point with them, because if they're not checking their blood sugar and they're on insulin or they're on a medication that can cause a low blood sugar, that's our first thing that we want to rule out, is making sure you're not having low blood sugars. Then we assess the high blood sugars, because the lows are more dangerous in the moment than a high. We teach them how to check their blood sugar if they're not checking their blood sugar. We have blood sugar meters. We usually have like continuous glucose sensors that we can show them how to use. And then kind of go from there, seeing like, quote unquote, how bad is their diabetes, or where exactly do you need help? Do you feel like you're forgetting to take your medications, or do you feel like you're not doing enough exercise? Do you feel like you're eating too much, you're not eating enough? Kind of assess where they're at that point as well. Because that all plays a role with their medications as well. If you're not eating enough and you're on insulin, that could explain why you're having a lot of low blood sugars. It's kind of like a puzzle that we're trying to put together with each patient.
We've obviously become more reliant on medications over the years for this condition.
Yeah, we have, but then I get a lot of patients that are really opposed to it. They're like, I don't want medications. I want to try this, with diet and exercise first.
Are there obviously instances where a diabetic condition can be controlled with those alone?
It can be controlled. We're not going to say reversed, right? But it can be well controlled. But in the case that the pancreas is just not working well and you're doing everything you can, right? And your pancreas just not working, you need the meds. Sometimes you just need the insulin. You just need the meds. And I have patients that are super athletic, eat super healthy. They count the carbs to the T. They're doing everything good, but their A1C is through the roof. And it's just because their pancreas is not working well. It's like if your brain is not working well or your heart is not working well, unfortunately, there's not much else you could do but get the help that you need.
So carbs and sugar, are those the major things to
carbohydrates.
consider?
The carbohydrates turn into sugar. I don't like to talk too much about sugar by itself. I like to talk about carbohydrates as a whole because some people don't realize that carbs are sugar.
Okay.
Yeah. They just isolate sugar by itself and don't realize that, bread is a carbohydrate. That turns into sugar. Fruit turns into sugar. Milk turns into sugar. All of those things are going to do the same thing in the body, turn into sugar.
Our carbohydrate needs every day, is there a general number that...
Yeah, it varies person to person.
Okay.
It depends on your activity level. It depends on your gender. Also depends on what your goal is, and if you have diabetes or not, that affects it too. And then if you're checking your blood sugar and you notice that when you eat X amount of carbs, that's still too low for you, or maybe it's too high. So it really just depends on person to person.
So you said that the diabetes class, and you are a certified diabetes educator.
Yes.
It was 8 hours?
It's 8 hours long, yes. So we teach it in two parts. So 4 hours is the 101, and then 4 hours is the 102. And then those 4 hours are split amongst a dietitian and a registered nurse that's also a diabetes educator. So we do basically 4 hours as a nurse and 4 hours as a dietitian.
And what are the topics in those?
It's a lot of topics. So we're talking about medications. We're going through like every single possible family of medications out there for diabetes. We have patients give their input, and they're like, hey, I'm on this medication and I've noticed these symptoms with me. And we're like, okay, well then maybe let's try something from this family. Bring it up to your doctor. Carbohydrates, we're talking about alcohol, we're talking about drinks, we're talking about dining out, how to check your blood sugar. We teach them how to do it in the class. What are we looking for? What your blood sugar should be? When is it too high? When is it too low? How do I treat a low? How do I treat a high? So we're going through basically every single step of the process with them.
And do you find that they don't need your guidance after that 8 hours, or do they continue to follow up with you?
They need to see us again because, 1 8 hour course, they forget a lot. They usually need a refresher. They need to come back and talk to us. And then sometimes their conditions have worsened and now they have kidney disease. So now they're seeing me to see, okay, well now the diabetes part, I got that part down, but then how do I incorporate now that I have kidney disease? So that's where we also kind of help them too, is when they have more complicating factors show up.
So the kidney disease, your kidneys functionings are dwindling.
Yeah.
Are there dietary solutions to that to
Yes.
keep it from deteriorating further?
Yes.
Can it improve or just not?
Yes. Yes, it could improve. If you're on dialysis or stage 5, stage 4 kidney disease, unfortunately, that's kind of, it, unless you get a new kidney or get the kidney removed. But there are different guidelines for someone that is on dialysis and someone who's not. Completely different.
We talked a little bit about kidney disease and diabetes, and you mentioned epilepsy earlier. What are some other conditions that dietary counseling can help improve?
Cancer. We get a lot of cancer patients. I also do a nutrition class at the cancer center as well. So I do the diabetes class and the cancer class. We see gestational diabetes, so women that are pregnant. We see women that are pregnant and have diabetes. We see patients with like hormone issues, PCOS, thyroid problems, inflammation, heart disease, high blood pressure. Those are the main ones. And majority obesity and weight loss. And a lot of patients too are probably taking a injectable like Ozempic or Wegovy or anything like that. So then they're seeing us as well.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. The GLP-1s?
Yes.
That's become a whole craze.
Yes.
What's your take on that?
So to be honest, I think that it shouldn't be the first resort for a patient trying to lose weight. I think they should have tried all other measures before they get to that point, because I think they do help. I think they definitely have their benefits, but some people also can't tolerate the side effects. So then they have to go back to square one, which is trying the natural methods of exercise and caloric deficit and stuff like that. But I think they're great if they're used properly.
Do you have some extra stuff that you'd like to bring up? What you see most often? Or
people come to a dietitian in hopes that we're going to give them a list of all the things they shouldn't have. What should I not do,
Yeah.
right? But our main focus is to incorporate every food group. So we want you to enjoy your food. We want you to be able to go out to dinner and not have this big fear of like, oh my gosh, I can't have that. I can't have that. You could have pizza, but maybe add more vegetables to it. Maybe not get 3 slices, get 2, right? So cutting back slowly on things versus like telling you that you should stop something cold turkey. Like we're not the ones to tell you to stop something cold turkey. We're going to work with you with where you're at. And I think a lot of people fear coming to us because they think we are these drill sergeants that are not human beings and don't understand that pizza's good and cake is good, I think just, making awareness of all foods are good, it's just how much you have of it. Because, broccoli is good for you, but if all you ate was broccoli for breakfast, lunch, and dinner and you didn't eat anything else, that's not good for you, right? So everything in moderation is really what's important.
That's the whole point of the department is they work with you.
Yes.
What kind of solutions can we find for you personally that work with your life?
I get a lot of patients that once we're done, they're like, oh my gosh, that wasn't that bad. Like I thought you were going to tell me that I couldn't eat, this and that. And, you read all these things online. Like sometimes I'll pretend I'm a patient and I have diabetes. And what am I going to find online? I can't eat bananas. I can't eat grapes. I can't eat this. I can't eat that. But you can eat them. You just need to learn how to. And that's what we're there for, to teach you how to incorporate those things in.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today and sharing this with us. It's so valuable, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
To this episode of Watson Clinic Health Talk. Appointments with Massiel and the Watson Clinic Dietary Counseling and Medical Nutrition Therapy Department may be arranged through physician referral. Visit watsonclinic.com/nutrition for more information. And don't forget to subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. Go to watsonclinic.com/podcast to learn how.